Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 2025 Frank's Finest Preseason Top Players list for Section 1AA. I'm your host, Frank Langella from FAM Sports, and welcome, guys. Obviously, it's a fun time of the year. Football season is fully underway, and this is a list talking about our top preseason players, between 11 and 13 players that we give on the offensive and defensive side, including the special teamers, if we believe that they deserve a spot. And for those new, how we kind of come up with these players is a couple different things. Number one is film. Film is the number one thing that we look at. It's the most important thing for us. We watch a ton of it. And obviously, it is a huge evaluation process for us. Second thing is coaches. Right? We talk to the different coaches. We ask for their opinions on players and why they think they should be a preseason top players list. And finally, stats. Stats is obviously really important. Not as important to me as the first two, but we do keep that in mind when making these decisions. Finally, I know some will agree with our picks, some will not agree with our picks. And if that motivates those that we haven't picked, that's even better, right? Because our football season can definitely change. But before we dive into the list, just a couple of quick things. Number one, if you haven't done so yet, make sure to hit that thumbs up, hit that sub button to help support this video and the channel. It also will let you know the next time that we are going to drop some content. And if you want to support the group even more, think about joining our Patreon. There's a free tier list where we give updates, especially if you're not on social media, on future content and things that are going on. Allow you to talk to us directly. And there's also paid memberships, which gives you exclusive perks and content and also helps support the group growth. So consider joining that. They'll be in the description. And now let's dive into our list. And we'll start on the offensive side for Section 1AA. And the quarterback spot is the first spot, and really difficult to always pick the quarterback. This is a painful process. It's exciting to do this, but also painful because of the tough decisions that we have to make. And, there was the batch of quarterbacks this year. There was a lot of young guys who stepped in last year who had to go through their lumps. And a lot of them really progressed as the season went along to make some big plays for their offense. So they come in this year, not dominating the entire year, but going through growing process. And for this year, it was a tough decision to make, but the quarterback for Section 1AA, Frank's Finest, is going to be Logan Lawrence, the senior from John Jay East Fishkill. And this young man's got the tools. 6'2", 190 pounds. He completed 70% of his passes, including 14 passing touchdowns. What I really liked was watching him on tape. He really got comfortable in the second half of the year for John Jay, and you could see that in the overall play of their offense. They scored 21-plus points in 4 out of the last 5 games, and he really excels at the play action. And I really like his ability under center, which not a lot of quarterbacks are comfortable with anymore, right? A lot of them are in the spread, in the gun all the time. And this young man can go under center and he can run play action. And he showed some nice touch and nice decision making on intermediate and deep throws out of play action pass. He also does play action out of the gun. And I thought he improved on his quick decision making as the season went along as well. So this is a young man who's got a nice arm. He shows some nice passes, like I mentioned, outside the numbers, in the intermediate. He also showed some short, quick game action. And he had some strong moments and reps against some good teams, and when you include North Rockland and Scarsdale last year. So to me, Logan Lawrence is this year's Frank's Finest quarterback. Next, we'll go to the backs, guys, and this is a mixture of running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. We just call them backs. And we'll start off with first one up, running back Landon Von Etten, the junior from Clarkstown South. And this is not a very big guy, but I tell you what, he really came onto the scene for Clarkstown South last year when they had a bunch of injuries early on, and he performed. And this is a lacrosse kid. I really like his feet. He's versatile. You can run out of the spread offense. You can receive out of the backfield. This is a versatile offensive weapon and really came through for Clarkstown South. And to me, poised to have another big season. He deserves a spot on this list. Next up, let's talk about running back Randy Morales Jr., the senior from New Rochelle High School, next on this list. Not a very big guy. He's about 5'7", but he runs hard. He's not easy to bring down. Really a spark plug for that offense last year. And he follows his blockers well. He's patient, but then has that speed to hit the hole hard and get to that second level. And really excelled at the counters and power game that New Rochelle ran. And if you want to see a nice little mixture of what I'm talking about for this young man, watch New Rochelle versus Mamaroneck. And he really played well against a really good team. And it was that mixture of what I said, patience, hitting the hole hard, and being difficult to tackle, even though he's not a very big guy, and he deserves a spot on this list. Next up, let's talk about running back Jaquiz Ramirez, the senior from Ossining. This young man, about 5'9", 175, 180 pounds, really strong year last year. All right, and Ossining runs a power running offense, and for that you need some running backs who can run with some good balance, and this young man did that. He had 790 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns, averaged over 4.5 yards a carry. And I loved his ability to run through contact, showing that balance. And again, not a very big guy, right? So he shows good pad level. He reads his blockers well. He's not afraid of that contact like I mentioned. But he also showed some good speed. It wasn't just power. So he showed a nice balance to him and had a really strong year in Ossining last year. Even though they rotated backs, he still performed at a high level. And he's poised for another good year this year and deserves a spot. Next up, and I'll call him an athlete because he'll line up in the backfield and at the wide receiver spot, and that's Mason Reddy, the senior from Clarkstown South. Versatile kid, and again, not a very big guy, but he shows once again the ability, another athlete that you can put in the backfield. You can run kind of this outside B to D gap runs with him, counters. He'll show the pace, so you can follow blocks, hit the hole hard. But then you line him up in the slot, and he's a solid route runner. So this is a slot receiver, running back mixture here. Another good athlete for Clarkstown South who really had to come onto the scene with the injuries they had last year. And he performed for them, and he deserves a spot on this list. Next up, we'll talk about another athlete, Isaiah Pierre, the senior from White Plains. Now, this young man, he was a wide receiver. He'll go into the backfield to be a running back for you. He's about 5'10", 160 pounds, not a very huge guy. But when there were some injuries for White Plains, he had to step into the quarterback spot, and he really excelled. And you saw this White Plains offense as the season went along could put up a bunch of points, and he's a huge part of it because he's got good speed. I mentioned line up multiple spots, which shows me versatility and coachability. And then secondly, when he gets to that second level, he does a really good job of making people miss. He's very elusive. He can stop on a dime. And he made a lot of missed tackles last year and really excelled at those quarterback runs, the scramble drills. I know he's not a natural quarterback, but this is a young man. You can line up a wide receiver, line up a running back. I think he's now become the full-time quarterback, and he can torment you running the ball. It's because, again, he'll have the arm that he can make throws, right? It's not just he's not just a runner, but that threat of him running the ball at multiple different spots, and as a receiver, he made some plays. Before he went down and had to move to the quarterback spot, he showed his ability that he can run some solid routes. He was a threat on the deep ball, and he deserves a spot on this list. Finally, to round off the backs is wide receiver Nate Johnson, the senior from John J. East Fishkill. This young man, 6'4", 180 pounds, obviously has the size, has the frame, has the catch radius that you want to see in a outside receiver. He had over 500 yards receiving, over 100 yards rushing last year, including 6 total touchdowns. And he is fast. And this young man is a pentathlon runner. And he really excelled on these go routes, right? These deep routes, even with defensive backs playing off coverage, you saw that speed on tape that he can take away that space and then create separation for himself. Even the quick throws, right? You just get him the ball, hike it through him, get it to him on some screens or some jailbreaks. And once he gets to that second level, there's not many people who can slow him down. Now, he still is, in my opinion, a raw route runner, but I thought he improved from the year prior. And if he improves even more, you're going to see one of the most dynamic receivers in the class. And I do think he's already that right now. You're going to see even more balanced, right? Because I didn't think he was a bad route runner, but there were some things that he can work on. But even then, his raw ability, his ability to create separation is unmatched in the class. All right, guys, now let's go to the linemen. And we'll start off with offensive tackle Taylor Skeen, the senior from Arlington. Big boy, 6'2", 260 pounds, strong down blocker. I mean, he's able to move people at the point of attack, but also shows the nimble feet that he can get to that second level, right? He's not just a big-bodied kid. He can get to that second level on screens. He held up pretty well on pass pro against some of the speedier defensive ends, and to me, a pretty solid, well-rounded offensive tackle for Arlington, and he deserves a spot on this list. Next up, let's talk about offensive lineman Evan Sheeron, the senior from Mamaroneck. And this is, again, not a very big guy. He's an internal offensive lineman at the guard spot. Good feet, the ability to pull, the ability to get to the second level. against, and block in space against some faster defenders. He was a plus at, and he holds up against some of the bigger, stronger guys. And a 3-year starter for this offensive line. And you could see continuing to improve year in and year out. And he can still run those double teams. And still, I know he's not as big of a guy, but on those double teams, he can move people at the point of attack. Another well-rounded offensive lineman, 3-year starter from Mamaroneck, deserves a spot on this list. Next up, let's talk about Bryce Bacchia, the senior from Suffolk. And I'll just say this, guys, I apologize if I butcher any names. It's going to happen. I'm terrible with names. I'll just make that case right now. Just tell me in the comments how to say it, or try to tell me how to say it. That doesn't guarantee that I can. But, talking about Bryce, I really liked his tape. This, young man at 6 feet, 250 pounds. I thought he was well-rounded in the run game. Against the smaller, nose guards, he'll outmuscle them, right? He'll drive his feet, he'll drive his hips, he'll seal them off. And then against the bigger guys, he can anchor down and steal them off as well. So he was well-rounded against multiple different type of defensive linemen. And a big part of it is he's got a good first step. He's got a real strong first step. He'll cut off those fast guys. He'll get ahead of those bigger guys. And he was very well-rounded to me in the run game. One of the better internal linemen on tape that I saw in the run game. In pass pro, yes, there's no perfect lineman in the list, but he still held up, I thought, relatively well compared to his peers. And to me, one of the better run-blocking internal offensive linemen in this group, and he deserves a spot on this list. Next up, let's talk about Xavier Marchand, the senior from Yonkers Brave. And this is a big boy. 6'4", 325 pounds. And again, he's got the tools that you want to see in a lineman. I mean, like 6'4", over 300 pounds. Big-bodied kid. Very raw in pass pro. With his steps, obviously with his nimble feet. Things that could definitely be worked on. But I tell you what, in the run game, he's got some strong hands, man. He can control defenders once he gets his hands locked in. He just leans on you and just moves you out of the way. And I showed a quick first step you'll see on some of his tape. When they try to run sweep to his direction, he can get to that outside shoulder of that defender. So those initial couple steps, he shows the feet that he can be a real plus run blocker. Probably more fit to be inside, but still really, really strong. Quick first step, attack the outside shoulders of his edge defenders, the ability to drive people at the point of attack with his size, with his strong hands. And even when I talk about raw and pass pro, you still saw some positive reps. You still saw some positive things watching his tape. So I think, probably one of the more surprises, but I think he deserves a spot on this list. Finally, to wrap it all off, and I am going to butcher this name, which I apologize ahead of time to him and his family, Lawrence Ioleku, the senior from Yonkers Force. And I probably absolutely butchered it, and I apologize for that, Lawrence. But this is a young man, I think it was 6'8". He committed to Boston College to play football. And when you watch him on tape, it's like a minivan moving on the football field, right? He just absolutely engulfs defenders. Like when he gets his hands on you, he just swallows them. He swallows them up. And again, very raw offensive lineman, you could tell, still learning the game. But when his technique is right, there's not a more dominant force on that offensive line. Like I mentioned, the size, the strength, the tools that he has. And he's a basketball guy. I mean, you could see the nimble feet. It's not like, he's heavy-footed and can't move at all. So this is a guy who's got some really impressive tools. And when you watch him on tape, when he's got his technique right, he is an absolute force. And one of the more dominant offensive linemen that you'll see when his technique is right. So Lawrence is wrapping up this list right here, and he absolutely deserves a spot on this one. All right, let's move, guys, to defense. And again, similar like we did on the offense, we'll start with the front seven, which is a mixture of the defensive line, defensive tackles, defensive end, outside linebackers / edges, inside linebackers. And then we'll do defensive back, or the back seven. Or not back seven, the defensive backs. Excuse me. And let's start off with the front seven. And first one up, Will Prevost, the senior from Mamaroneck. And this young man, 6'2", 230 pounds. I really liked his ability to set the edge. This was a young man with the Mamaroneck team, obviously went to the section title game. And watching early on, there was this, defensive lineman who was rocking 32, and he's making some big plays against some good teams like Scarsdale. And I was like, man, this young man has got a really strong rip move. He can rip you inside. He can set the edge outside, anchoring down, using his strength. He was really positive in the run game, in my opinion, and I really love his effort, right? I mean, pass rushing, there's a lot of technique in pass rushing, but a lot of it on the high school level is just the effort, right? To turn the corner, to beat that lineman in front of you off the ball, and he did a great job throughout the year of doing that. He has really become a force on the defensive line. He was all section last year, and for good reason. He's got good lateral movement, good first step, and some moves in the arsenal that he can get by some of the bigger linemen. And the slower ones will use his speed, but even the ones that have some speed, he shows the ability to use his hands. And so a well-rounded defensive lineman will deserves a spot on this list. Next up, and I call him Edge. He's a defensive end. He's kind of an edge player. Noah Kukielczak. And again, I heavily apologize if I butchered your name, but from North Rockland, number 23. This young man had over 90 tackles last year, super active, 6 feet, 190 pounds, 5 sacks, and explosive. That's what the word when I watch him. He is explosive. This is a guy who can beat you in the inside. He can beat you around the edge. Love the motor that he plays with, and he wins with that strong get off. A lot of linemen who are heavy-footed, he can eat you up. And he caused a lot of negative plays for opposing offenses last year for that North Rockland defense, which was one of the best in the section. And I thought, last year with all these different explosive players that North Rockland had, the question was in the trenches for me. And this is one of the guys on the defensive side of the ball that by the year end was one of the best defensive players in the class. Now he's coming back. So he absolutely deserves a spot on this list. Next up, another very impressive, probably not a lot of people know him, and that's defensive tackle Leo Green, the senior from Scarsdale. And again, 6 feet, 210 pounds. This is when you look at a defensive tackle, right? That's not a big number, but he is fun to watch. And I love his mix of speed and strength. And I tell you, I think he's at best being on the outside shoulder of the guard, on the inside shoulder of the tackle. But man, I really loved his get off. I love that his ability to power through smaller guards using his strength. And then the bigger guys, he's able to rip his arm through. He's able to disengage some powerful offensive linemen to get to the ball. He also shows the lateral quickness that when plays are away, he can attack down the line of scrimmage and still make the play. So again, Leo Green, he had positive reps both in the run game and in the pass game. One of the better defensive linemen that you'll see in the class. Deserves a spot on this list, obviously. Next up, let's talk about defensive tackle Cham Fountain, the senior from North Rockland. Big-bodied kid, 270 pounds, 6 feet, low center of gravity. But he's not just a defensive tackle that just anchors, right? He's not just a big-bodied kid that just takes on double teams, which is really important for a defensive tackle so your linebackers can make plays. But this is a guy who, has a solid first step. He wants to fight off those blockers, right? So he does a good job using his hands, dipping his shoulders. He can outstrength those smaller offensive linemen, especially on the interior with the centers or guards. He showed that ability. And I also like his effort. I mean, this is another, sometimes you see some big defensive linemen that when a play's away that, they'll stop. He chases, right? He'll make some plays down the line. I like his effort. I liked, again, the ability to anchor down when, again, double teamed and his ability to fight off blocks. He's not just standing his ground. And he deserves a spot on this list. Next up, let's talk about defensive end Caleb Biber, the senior from RCK. 6'1", 225 pounds, strong young man. He wins with his strength, but he also shows that lateral quickness that he can catch plays from backside, right? So a lot of times I saw a bunch of teams try to read him. You see that with a lot of this, power read or zone read or any of those type of reads where they're going to isolate that defensive end and they'll be given the ball because they don't think he has that lateral quickness. And he shows, hey, he could chase it and still make the play, even when he holds. And I just like again, another kid who's very active. And then this is so important. You could be strong rep to rep, But in the long course of a game, you constantly show that effort. You constantly show that drive to make the play. And this is one of those young men that embodies that. Powerful kid. It was hard to really move him because you could see strong in his hips and his legs, able to fight off those big tackles when they're down blocking him. Tight ends have a difficulty blocking him. Another impressive young man deserves a spot on this list. All right, let's talk now linebacker Tyler Prisco. Next on the list, the senior from North Rockland, 5'10", 190 pounds. He had over 80 tackles last year, forced a couple turnovers, including an INT. And I tell you, when he gets his full flow read in one direction, this young man can hit that gap hard. He'll find the space to the ball carrier. He's got a strong nose for the football, and he is a strong tackler. To me, he shows that closing speed that he can make plays from the weak side, across the line of scrimmage. He shows the hips that he can drop into coverage. A well-rounded linebacker. Obviously, there's still some raw aspects to him, right? From his stance, in my opinion, from his first step. But he makes up for it with his athleticism. So if he can shore up some of that raw aspects to his game, you're looking at, and I think he already is one of the best linebackers in this class, you can even grow even further. But I do like his well-roundedness as a linebacker. Next up is linebacker Colin Brennan, the senior from Scarsdale. Really love watching this young man play. Not a very big guy at 5'10", 175 pounds, but he is an athletic linebacker. And I tell you what, he is a finisher. He can hit you. I mentioned not a giant imposing figure, but he comes with some force. And you can see on his tape, he'll hit you when he squares you up. And I love that he is not afraid at all. A really strong blitzer. He times his blitzes very well. He's able to finish when he gets there. A lot of times you'll see some really good blitzing linebackers that can get there, but they can't finish the tackle. He does both of those very well. Strong nose for the football. Shows that, again, even though he's not a big guy, he's not afraid to attack the line of scrimmage, through the traffic, through the mud, through the alley, when there's a lot of big bodies in there. But I think he really excels also from the weak side, where he's got to scrape across the line of scrimmage or attack from backside, and he uses his speed. A really athletic linebacker, and definitely deserves a spot on this list. Finally, to wrap up the front seven, or defensive line and linebackers, because there's a little bit more than the front seven. Jarrell Middlebrooks, the senior from Mount Vernon. This guy has, the versatility as an outside linebacker, move him inside at times into the inside linebacker. He was all section last year, had over 100 tackles. This young man has a really strong nose for the football, super active, strong tackler, and he was all over the field. I mean, this is someone who can make plays in the box against the run, make plays towards the sideline, set the edge. This is another well-rounded run-stopping defender who is super active, and he definitely deserves a spot on this list to wrap things up. All right, now let's talk about the back end guys, and then we'll do special teams as well. First, let's talk about defensive back Cruz Calcagni, the senior from John Jay East Fishkill, 5'10", 180 pounds. And I really like his ability. He shows the ability to play as a high safety and a safety in the box. So that versatility that he can roll into the box, he can play at the high safety spot. And where he really excels at, playing the run. I mean, this is a young man who can really, really hit you. He is not afraid. He takes strong angles to the ball, finishes these tackles in space, which is not easy to do. And I thought he improved dramatically last year in his pass coverage, which I thought was something I needed to work on, and he has improved in that. So he's now become, to me, a well-rounded safety who definitely excels in the run game, but has also improved as a pass cover guy, and he deserves a spot on this list. Next up on the list, defensive back, Zach Alperowitz from Amerenik. This young man, the senior, good speed. And he showed that he could play some man coverage, really excels at off coverage where he can read the route and quarterback in front of him. But he showed the ability to play some man coverage at 6 yards. At times, he can get close to the receiver, looking at some press. But I think he really excels in off coverage where he can drive on the ball, see everything in front of him and drive off the ball. He made some really impressive plays. I think he's actually one of the more well-rounded cover guys, and he's not afraid to come up and tackle people in space either. Sometimes you have corners who are a little hesitant to do that. He's not one of them. So to me, shows that he's a well-rounded defensive back and corner and deserves a spot on this list. Next up, let's talk about defensive back Alex Krupkin, the senior from Scarsdale. Really good range. This young man has really good range. Again, can play at the high safety. You put him in the slot, he'll play some man coverage, he'll play some zone coverage for you. And I love his timing. He does a really good job of driving on the football. He got good ball skills, good athlete, and he'll also come and hit you. This is a well-rounded safety here that, again, shows the ability to play a high safety, and even more impressively, put him in the slot. And you can play him in man coverage. You can have him defend against the run. Another well-rounded safety. One of, I think, the best safeties, clearly, in the class, and deserves a spot on this list. Finally, to wrap it all off, we'll go with an underclassman here and might surprise. Jonah Burdoin, the junior from Arlington. This young man, not a very big guy, right? 5'9", 175 pounds, and he is a box safety. To me, this is a strong safety, box safety here, and this is a guy who can step into that alley and make plays for you. Really like his ability to disengage blocks out in space, make tackles out in space. He's not afraid. He can even step into that box, play as that extra linebacker for you in some of these heavy sets, and shown some success. And to me, he held up relatively well versus compared to his peers in the back end. Again, he was a sophomore last year. I'm expecting huge growth this year, but he was impressive on what I saw in tape, both obviously starting off against the run, and then finally, some of the pass pro stuff, dropping out into zone coverage, running with some of these speedy receivers, staying in their hip. He did some solid work there in pass pro when these young guys really struggle, especially on the physical side. And he did not show that. So he definitely deserves a spot on this list. And to wrap it all off, guys, we'll go with the special teamers. It could be a kicker, punter, at times returner. And we're going to go Will Prevost, the senior from Mamaroneck. I know I mentioned him before on the defensive line. We normally don't do double duty here unless one is far and beyond, to be considered for more than one position, and we do consider them. But if you go one, we usually cancel out. But special teams, that doesn't included with that group. And so he definitely deserves the kicker spot for me. He was an all-state kicker, made some huge clutch plays, kicking the ball, with game-winning kicks throughout his career. This is a young man who's got good range. He can obviously boot it into the end zone on kickoffs, and the clutch factor is another one for him. So he deserves the kicker spot for this year. Well, thank you guys so much. That was our Frank's Finest for Section 1AA. We appreciate you guys for tuning in as always. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure to hit that thumbs up, hit that sub button. And we'll see you all very soon.